Welcome to Conquering Chronic Illness. My name is Teresa. I'm a woman, wife, and mother conquering chronic illness. And today we're going to discuss 5 questions you can ask someone in your life who is coping with chronic illness. Hey, could you do me a favor? Subscribe, and I'll see you in the comment section down below. I'm going to put the link for where I got these questions from below in the description bar. It also has 5 questions not to ask someone who has chronic illness, and I will say they're on point. So if you got a minute, go down in the description box, click on the link, see those questions, and also while you're down there, comment, subscribe, like. So here are 5 questions you can ask someone who is coping with, I won't say struggling through, they may be struggling, but coping with chronic illness. One thing I will say, I don't know if this is on the list of 5 things, and I feel like, no, it's not. How are you doing? That question, don't make me lie to you. Please don't make me lie to you, because a lot of times I will have to, because sometimes the answer to that is I'm doing really bad, and nobody really wants to hear that. So question number 1, is it okay if I ask you about your chronic illness? So I understand that you might be curious as to exactly what your chronic illness is, exactly how that chronic illness affects the person that you know personally. And I would hope like this is a person you know personally, not just a random person on the street. But sometimes they may not want to talk about it at all. Sometimes I know I don't feel like talking about it that day. I am pretty comfortable. It's therapeutic for me almost to talk about how I am dealing with the chronic illnesses that affect my body and my life. But for some people that is not the case. For some people, they're trying to live past it and not think about it all the time, and you bringing it up might not be what they want right then. So it's always good to ask and be okay. This is not on here, but just pointers. Be okay if they say no. Don't ask me about my chronic illness. I don't particularly want to talk about that. There is a growing number of people who are offended by their chronic illness being viewed as a disability or a difference. And so that's just kind of good to be aware of. Question number 2, what is it like living with your illness? So I think for most people who have chronic illness, it may oftentimes feel like that people don't understand the day-to-day struggles and the day-to-day ways that your life has had to change because you're dealing with a chronic illness. And so it would be a thoughtful question to ask and to listen to the answer for. Not necessarily to offer pointers and tips on how they can overcome the obstacles of the day-to-day, you know, because 1, they've probably already tried all of those things, and 2, they may not be looking for a problem solved right then, just for someone to be interested enough to understanding what their life is like and how their life has had to change because they're dealing with a chronic illness. Something to think about. Question number 3, what would be helpful for me to know and learn about your illness? So a lot of times we do a Google search. We have one conversation with a person that we care about, or maybe even a significant other in our life, and we feel like we know all that we need to know about the specific illness, but that might not be the case. There may be some specific ways that that chronic illness affects them and their day-to-day life. And if you are sharing a life with that person, it's important for you also to be able to understand how specifically that chronic illness affects them, but also the most important thing to them about their chronic illness and what they're dealing with their chronic illness, because I can almost guarantee that will vary from person to person. Some people deal really strongly with the chronic fatigue that comes with a chronic illness. Some people don't suffer as much with the chronic fatigue. Some people don't have as much pain as other people with a chronic illness. So it just kind of all depends. And maybe the financial aspect that is something that is something that is really burdensome for that person. Or it may be the exact opposite. They may have awesome insurance and may not deal with that. So, I mean, understanding how the chronic illness affects them, and the most important thing for them to relate to you about their chronic illness would always be helpful. Question number 4, what do most people not know or get wrong about your illness? It's almost like that question that I used to get all the time when I was vegan. Where do you get your protein? Right? Sometimes I get some of the oddest questions and I wonder, like, where does that come from? Like, sometimes people just have it all wrong. And especially for the people who are closest to me, it's important for me that they know. It's important for me, particularly, that the people who are closest to me aren't ignorant about the chronic illness that I'm dealing with. Only if they're interested, though. There are some people who are close to you, who are close to me, who probably aren't as interested in knowing specifically about the chronic illnesses that I deal with. But there are some people who are, and it's especially important for those people to know what dealing with that chronic illness entails. And this is probably the most important one. Number 5, how can I support you? And this probably will be as different from person to person as fingerprints are from person to person. Specifically because 1, everybody's different. 2, everybody's body is affected by that chronic illness differently. And 3, there are different times and different circumstances where that chronic illness may be affecting that particular person in different ways. And so what that means for the person, the people around them that care about them, is what they will need as supports is going to be different from time to time. It may change. It is difficult to ask for help because I'm willing to bet that this is something that is universal across the board, but dealing with chronic illnesses changes the way that you're able to live your life and the capacity that you're able to live your life at. And so if I want to live my life to the fullest, or live my life to the capacity that I was living it before I was diagnosed and started suffering with a chronic illness, I'm going to need help to do that. And the help that I need is going to change over time. These are all thoughtful questions to ask, but I think number 5 would probably be the most helpful on a day-to-day basis, specifically because, and especially for the people who are closest to an individual with chronic illness, it's so hard to ask for help sometimes. And I know that I often need it. And so I know that someone, particularly my husband or my closest friend or my mom, asking me, so how are you doing? Are you able to do this? What do you need right now? And being able to count on them to respond in a way that's actually helpful. Not questioning, well, you didn't need this last week. Well, you were able to clean the kitchen last week. Why can't you do it? Things like that. It's so important for me for people to understand that how I am affected by my chronic illness changes on a day-to-day basis, and what I will need from the people who are closest to me will change on a day-to-day basis. These are great questions. I'm also going to put a link down below for 5 questions that you should never ask under any circumstance. And I will see you in the comments section below and in the next video.